Hey, what's up guys? My name is Cameron Gallagher from We Are Film, and today we're talking all about planning your next shoot. So let's get into it. One of the hardest things to do is create a schedule, and I wanted to make a video kind of talking about how I made the schedule for our upcoming short film, The Rickety Man, and sort of the easiest and best way to do it, or at least the easiest and best way that I found to do this, because there are a million ways to create a schedule, but the problem is that creating a schedule isn't just as simple as saying like, well, we arrive at 8 o'clock and we're gonna be done at 5 o'clock. You kind of have to figure out how long things are gonna take during the day and have an estimated time of what could go wrong and how you could kind of adapt from that. And I wanted to make this video today to show you how I use my iPad, and in particular the Shotlister app, which I have nothing to do with. I'm not sponsored by them. I love their stuff. I've talked with Zach a few times. He is awesome. The app is just incredible. And it's something that I use, and it's pretty much a part of my process. And we're gonna be talking all about our short film coming up here in just a week for us, called The Rickety Man. So we raised almost $17,000 on Kickstarter, and we also have raised a little bit of money outside of that. So our budget is gonna be about $20,000 total. So this is a pretty big short film for us. And if you're interested, we're gonna be doing a massive behind the scenes, like over 5 hours of content from pre-production to post-production behind the scenes. It's basically a filmmaking masterclass. So if you want to pre-order that, we're taking the pre-orders at our website down in the description below. So use that link, go pre-order that if you want to see the whole behind the scenes. It's pretty intense. This kind of stuff is gonna be involved in that. We're gonna go even more in depth. We say 5 hours, but it's gonna be probably a lot more than that. So we're going on the safe side. So we're gonna jump into the Shotlister app, and one of the first things you wanna do is obviously make a project, and I'm not gonna make a whole tutorial on how to use Shotlister as a shot listing software, but I'm gonna show you how within Shotlister you can create shoot days and how this is gonna keep us on track. So in my case, I have The Rickety Man, and I have all of our scenes, and I have gone through and created a shot list. So what I did was I went through with the script, and I made my own shot list first. I basically sat down, figured out what shots I knew I wanted in the film, and kind of just a general idea. I even sketched them out in GoodNotes. I kind of did a video on that before too. But it gave me a basic idea of what I want in the film. And then after I went to the actual location with Zach and Josh and Michael, which is our DP and gaffer, and we sort of went through all the shots, and we sort of said, what's not gonna work physically, and what can we do to make better use of our time? So we did optimize it a little bit. So that's always good. Always optimizing things is better. So yeah, so this is all of our scenes right here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually go to the, so again, you kind of have to do this beforehand. You can create all this and create your entire shot list first in Shotlister, and then I'm gonna show you how to create the shoot days. So when you go click on the bottom, click shoot day, you can see now that for us, this is our shoot days. So we have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5. And you can immediately see too that right off the bat, you can also see how much of the script we're actually shooting. So you can see that day 1 and day 2 are pretty packed. Day 3 is a little bit lighter because there's a lot more emotional kind of stuff to that, so it's gonna probably take a little bit longer. Day 4 is not bad. Day 5 is kind of a lot. So let's go to day 1. Now, normally what you would do is when you actually create these, you need to put in the shoot date. So actually if we go back, if I were to rotate the iPad, you'd have to actually click, like create new shoot date with this. So you have to do that ahead of time, but again, this isn't like a full-on tutorial. I just wanna show you how we're gonna be using it. So we have the date here on the left-hand side, which is the obviously date we're shooting. This is the nickname, so day 1. Now, this available time I'm gonna get into in a minute. We can change that and do things like that later, and we'll kind of show you how you can do that. So you initially create a call time, a lunchtime, a wrap time, and then you put the sunrise and sunset. Obviously, those are super helpful things. So in my case, we're starting pretty much every day at about 8 o'clock, having our lunch at about noon every day. And then I gave myself kind of a long wrap time, so 6 p.m. That's a 10-hour day. We may not actually hit that. We may. We'll kind of see. But it's good to have an estimate. And let's be real, keep it 8 to 10 hours. Like anything more than that's kind of intense. So we also have the amount of pages that we can put in, the shots, and then the setups. Now, what you'd normally do is click on the right-hand side up here, the plus button, to add any of the scenes. So if you click on the check mark, the entire scene, it'll do the entire scene. You can actually go into each scene and you could add extras. So we're not gonna do that right now. Obviously, our scene's already in here. But you can see that it says what our scenes are. So in this one, at 8 a.m., we're starting with the dining room. We have the day study and then the night dining. And these are all of our shots here. So you can see at 9 a.m., we have our first shot, and the reason being is because I actually added a 60-minute setup. So you can also add, if you click on the little like pen pad here, you can enter a new what's called note and add in something like a lunch or a setup or some type of break in time that's not a shot. So this way, maybe you have a really tough turnaround time or a really tough setup between two shots, you can always add that. And I tried to sort of just add that into the overall shot itself, because I knew that some were gonna be like, we set up a main setup and then we just kind of adjust things from there. So you can see that we have our setups here, and in the right-hand corner, we have this little number. So in this case, there's 40, and you can see there's a slider. And if I slide that up and down, that'll be how many minutes. And you see if I were to slide it way up to 180 minutes, now on the left-hand side, we went over. We are now at 11 hours and 35 minutes, so we're going to be over our shoot date. So I don't want that. I'm gonna go back down to 40. And basically, you have to just kind of go through and estimate how long each shot is gonna take you to get. So this includes maybe the setup time, maybe you include the setup of each shot in there, and then also the amount of takes. Now, some of these, for instance, like the close-ups, they're 15 minutes. You might say, well, that's kind of quick. Well, it's because I know the way we're gonna be set up and the way we're gonna be shooting that realistically, it'll just be moving the camera and shifting a light, and then honestly, just running through a look. So those are basically cut-in shots. And there are some shots that are much longer, like some of the first ones are gonna take 40 minutes because I know it's a movement, there's a camera element to it, and that's gonna take the longest. So by adding all of these, what you're gonna be doing is creating the amount of total time. We can see in the top hand corner, 6 hours and 5 minutes. That's for our first scene. For our second scene, we have 1 hour and 45 minutes. And for our third scene, we have 1 hour and 25 minutes. And of course, you can see that in between I have more setup. So I have a 40-minute setup for this other shot. I have another 55-minute setup for the night dining. These may change, but the great thing is when you're actually on set and you're going through these, when the shoot date comes up on the calendar, you become like, there's this like shoot mode. So basically the day is moving along. And what you do is you actually check off each shot as you get them. So the first thing is great is that it's a checklist for all of your shots. So you can see all of your shot lists in your shoot date, and as you're going through them, you check them off and you can say, okay, we did that one, we did that one, we're good for the next one. The great thing is that Shotlister actually keeps time for you. So let's say you were to shoot this first shot here, which I had 40 minutes for. Let's say you did it in 20 minutes. Well, that means you're actually going to be in the green, so you're going to be ahead 20 minutes. Now, that may then disappear later. Maybe for one of the other shots where I only had 15 minutes, maybe it takes us 30 minutes, so that's 5 minutes lost. And it also shows you the opposite if you were to get behind schedule. So let's say the first shot for me takes 1.5 hours to get, you're going to then say, hey, we're in the red, however many minutes, and then you need to then catch up. So the great part is, and one of the actual recommendations that Zach talked about in the podcast that we did with him, interviewing him, kind of talking about Shotlister, one of the great things that he said was using and keeping your insert shots till later is great, because then that way, if you're behind schedule, you can always grab those insert shots quicker. You can almost grab them later, maybe, depending. And it's something that maybe you could throw away. He said, make sure to do the most important shots first because they're gonna take the most time and you need them. So that's one of the great things that Shotlister kind of does for us, is we can go through here, look at how much time we think we're gonna need, and sort of create a basic schedule. And the nice thing is too, is I can actually export this. So when I click on the little button up here, I can export this as a PDF, CSV, SHL. So that's a Shotlister. You can do them landscape with color, the strip boards, the circle takes, storyboards, cast, all that kind of stuff. And that's super handy when you want to generate basically a type of call sheet. Now, it's not perfect because it's a little more technical than an actor's call sheet, but if you wanted to, you could have it where certain casts were on certain days, and then of course you could hand this to everyone, and then production at least can know who's on what day, what cast is on what day. Maybe the costume designer only has to costume these 3 people this day and that 2 people that day, something of that. So the great thing is it can keep you on schedule. And you can see we have some of our other dates here. Same idea. We have less scenes, we have lunch. I put in 70 minutes. I like to add a little bit extra for lunch because there's usually that like wind down, wind up kind of time, and then some setups in between. And again, this is not a, the end all be all of the schedule. It's just great to know that we have a plan on the shoot date so that way we can start to see what's going on, what's going wrong, and if we're way behind schedule, why are we way behind schedule? Now, one of the things that I did to try to combat this is I tried to keep a pretty open and flexible schedule, meaning that first off, we have just about a half hour to an hour each day of extra time. So this is about a half hour to an hour of just bonus time that I've added on because probably something won't be perfect. One of the other things that I like to do is add a ton of rehearsal and setup time. So for instance, with this larger shot, I have 100 minutes of rehearsal and setup because I know it's going to be kind of an intense shot. And then on day 2, oops, the same day. On day 3, we have an hour set up for the first one because a lot of that's going to be kind of the same direction. And then same with the opposite is that during lunch, we can swap that around. So we can have some people break for lunch, some people do some other stuff and then swap. And then that way we're, making sure everything is moving as time efficient as possible. And then again, I also made sure to add a little bit extra per shot because I know some of these ones, for instance, the 75 and 60, they're longer shots, but they're also much more dialogue heavy and they're very intense when it comes to emotion. So I'd rather have an hour plus to work on those shots to make sure that we're getting those properly. So again, Shotlister is just really keeping me in line and in check with not only having my shot list of what I need for the edit later on, but also then organizing those in what's going to be the most efficient way to shoot them and also the most timely manner. Now let's talk about efficiency too, because this is one thing that I've tried to kind of do, but I haven't done as much and I can move around. Let's say I start looking at these shots, and this week I'm going to really do a deep dive on this to make sure that we're prepared. We want to look at setups. So I didn't include setups in the shot list. If you were a very technical cinematographer or director and cinematographer sitting down and doing this, you can actually sit down and add the setups. So you could say, well, I know, on day 2 we have 5 different setups. We have, facing this direction, facing that direction, this close up, that. And then you can also break down your shots from there. So one thing that I might do is group all of the shots in the direction. So for instance, on this day, the top 2 shots are facing the father character. And then the bottom 2 shots are facing the girl character. So the thing that I know is that there's going to be a break in between there where we're going to have to do some type of setup. So I might add a little bit more of a setup here. And let's add 45 minutes. It probably won't actually take that long, but then we're going to move this in between because it's probably going to take us a little bit of time to then switch sides and switch angles. And that's kind of the great thing we can do is sort of see what needs to go in what direction. Now, what I might actually want to do is do all of his stuff facing that way, and then maybe do setup, and then lunch, and then do all of the opposite facing. So this way we're doing all of his stuff one direction and then her stuff the other direction. And I can go back and look at some of the other days. So on day 2 here, same thing. We could probably readjust some of these to make sure that they're facing the same direction. So that way we're not shooting, this direction, then that shot, then that shot. So like for instance, this is facing the girl. So that's kind of facing the door. So we could do that one before. This is somewhat chronological too. That's facing him, so we'll keep that there. Yeah, so that's actually pretty good. And actually we could probably add a setup time. So let's add, we'll add another setup time in between. It's probably going to be about 30 minutes. So we'll add this setup, most likely right in between there for that shot. And this setup and rehearsal, we don't need 100 minutes, so we'll probably need 70 minutes. And then same with this shot, we'll probably need 55 minutes. So now we're back down under. So you can see I can adjust certain things based on what we need and based on what we are possibly going to run into when it comes to shot setups and things like that. Yeah, so that's basically how I'm using Shotlister to create a schedule and really just keep us on track for the Rickety Man. Honestly, for me, it's going to be such a huge help to be on set having this. I'm going to have the iPad with me at all times with the script, with the shot list. It'll be an easy way to make sure I have a visualization of what's going on. Also, Zach on his iPad will have this open as well, so he could be taking a look at more of the overarching kind of themes and making sure that we're hitting everything we need for the edit and for consistency. And again, I'll be kind of looking more at the emotion and breaking down sort of the character stuff. But it's just nice that we can easily be looking at the same document, the same time on both devices. Now, I will say some of these pro features are only with the Shotlister Pro membership, but I think it's like $13 a year or something. I don't know. I think there's an iPad version that's $50 a year, or maybe it's the Mac version. Whatever it may be, I'll leave it down in the description below. Check out Shotlister because, again, they have nothing to do with us, but just an awesome app. Like, honestly, this thing has been such a time saver and such an amazing help in general. So if you haven't used it before, the free version is pretty much does a lot of it anyway. But obviously, if you want to step it up and be a little more pro, there's a pro version. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Again, be sure to pre-order that entire masterclass of ours for the Rickety Man behind the scenes down in the description below. tons and tons and tons of information. I mean, we have hours and hours and hours already of casting meetings and production meetings and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, everything from emailing to how to contact people to, I mean, we got a custom slate piece. So I mean, like everything you could possibly imagine when it comes to creating a short film on a high scale like this, we are going behind the scenes on. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, consider subscribing. We post gear reviews, tutorials, behind the scenes, and a lot more on a consistent basis. And of course, be sure to hit the notification bell so you're always notified and the first to watch. So, let's subscribe.